Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Things That Matter with Marty McNabb. And today, Sam as well. But I am, as you've known for, if you've been listening a little bit, or if you are just showing up here, the thing that you need to know is that I have been telling stories with other people's stuff for over 30 years. So first with Memories Out of the Box, which I started 30 years ago. I can't believe it, but it's where I help people with their photos, documents, and memorabilia, which includes objects, three-dimensional objects, tell a visual narrative. So we all take photos, we all collect things. We often and sadly leave them in the boxes, the bags, the suitcases, the storage units, the attics, the basements. And of course, we're talking about the digital too. So on our phones, on our multiple phones that we keep because we haven't transferred the photos. They're just everywhere. We document the heck out of our lives, and we inherit things from others in our family that document our lives, our journey through this life, that are kind of the literally souvenirs of our journey, of our experience. And my goal with Memories Out of the Box, and also now with Show and Tales, is to encourage people to get those things out of their boxes and back into their lives. So I've hosted over 200 of these, mostly in person, but in the last 3 years, like the rest of us, we've had to go online, that whole pivot idea. And even though I resisted it, because I love the in-person stuff, I've found that it's equally a wonderful way to build deeper connections, community, and legacy. So, but today, I have a special guest who, as a matter of fact, I met when I was first starting Memories Out of the Box, when I was first starting this journey down the path of being a personal historian and legacy artist. And Sam, I met through sadly, our folded Association of Personal Historians, APH. Yes. It lasted and went strong for 22 years, but it folded about 5 years ago, I believe. But needless to say, there's plenty of people like Sam and I, and hundreds, if not thousands of others, that still help people tell their life story, preserve and present the story of their lives. So I am so excited to have a personal historian. You're the first personal historian I've had on my show. Yes. And did all of this with personal historians in mind, but you're the first one. So
I'm honored. Thank you.
Well, it was just so nice catching up with you last week that I knew that I needed to have you on my show, because you've got a lot of things happening, girl, and I always love hearing about them. So with that, without further ado, I am super excited to find out what you brought to share on Show and Tell with me and my listeners. So I'm going to have you take it away.
All righty. Well, I changed my mind, as I told you, at the last minute. About an hour ago, I said, no, I'm just not feeling that. I am going to pick this. So what I have selected is this lovely, my Vanna White moment, this lovely Loon candle holder with its old janky little thing. It's very old. How old is it? It's got to be 53 years old by now. And I'll back up and tell you how I came into possession of this thing. Well, I've moved a lot in my life for a variety of reasons: college dorms and early employment apartments, divorce apartment, and a little bit of homelessness. I couch surfed for 9 months and then managed to get into my own apartment again. Then I met and married the love of my life when I was 51 years old. And he, like me, has a wanderlust for travel and adventure, which means as a retired Army officer, we chose to move to Germany in 2016. for a job for him. And of course, I can do my job from anywhere, helping people write stories. And then we went home during the COVID years, and now we're back. We moved back in December of 2022, and we are back in Germany for at least another 3-year stint. So in all, I have moved 22 times in my life, which I just counted actually a little while ago. Yeah. And when you move this much, especially when you have only a little money, you know, I only took what I could pack in my little Honda Fit from one place to another. So you learn to downsize quickly. So my memories came out of most boxes and ended up in piled up, bubble wrapped and scotch taped pieces of cherished memories in the back of my Honda Fit, along with the dog, as I moved from place to place. And luckily, I still have a few of these treasured items that I call Hygge items. I don't know if you know what Hygge is.
I don't.
It is, it's a feeling in your spirit. It's a defining characteristic of the Danish culture, first of all. And it means a quality of coziness and comfortable conviviality that engenders a feeling of contentment or well-being. So I have these few things that I keep near me to feel that contentment, that sense of well-being, that sense of feeling anchored and grounded in my own life, even as I move around or the world at this point now. So when you have only a few things, I actually learned to pack them in my suitcase and bring them overseas, because when you ship with the Army, they go into these container ships, and I see stories all the time online in these military groups where the containers fall off the ships in a storm and they bobble around the surf. Who knew? There's like several thousand of them bobbling around the oceans around the world, and then eventually they lose the air and sink to the bottom. And I didn't want these few little things to end up floating in the Atlantic Ocean. So I don't have a lot of stuff, and I've learned to give less value to things as I've aged, but the things that I have, I really, really treasure for the stories they tell me. So back to how I got hold of this, my Loon candle. When I was in 1970, I was 7 years old, and my parents had the good fortune of buying 3 acres of bluffs and a bay on Downey Island, located just across the border into Canada from upstate New York, and the famed Thousand Islands on the St. Lawrence River. And it really made for a magical childhood. My mother loved candles. She loved loons. They make this really beautiful, haunting sound, and she just loved them. That and trillium flowers. So yeah, she would burn candles, but we always had a house full of people. And it was usually island people, which I learned later on. I didn't know what they did for a living. And I was rubbing elbows with famous authors and attorneys and vice presidents of corporations and theater producers, housewives, factory workers, nurses, teachers. You get the idea. What mattered to my little self was I was in the presence of these people who showed me love, kindness, patience galore, and adventure on the islands. And always this little loon holder was right in the middle of the room. It always sat on the table in our small living room at the cottage. It's a handmade wooden candle holder with a hand-painted glass inlay of a painted loon on the front, surrounded by cattails. Well, the loon's the wrong color, but we ignore that because I think it was a gift from someone else on the island. Either that or it was purchased on another island and given to my mother when we first moved in as a welcome to your new cottage gift.
Wow.
And the door never closed all the way, but it's one of its charms, and I don't care. But every little candle Mom or me burned in that loon box seemed to lighten up any gathering in the room, and commit it to memory. Oh, if the loon could talk. So here's a couple of key memories so that I associate immediately with this loon candle. Downey Island was only about an hour and a half away from Syracuse, New York, where we lived. So it was really easy to pop up on the weekends. So Mom and Dad would finish work on Fridays, and then we would go up park the car at the marina, hop in the boat, and go over to the island for the weekend. And as I got older, I was allowed to stay either alone on the island or at my boyfriend's. His parents owned the marina where we stayed. So I would pump gas on the gas dock, which, boy, the stories I heard there, if a gas pump could talk. So needless to say, with a house full of, a cottage full of friends and family, the extended family came on the weekends, and my parents were never alone. So one weekend we all went up, and I said, I'm going to stay overnight at my girlfriend's house. And really, I was hanging out with Richard until all hours of the morning. And we came back, and he dropped me off. And there's two stories concerning Richard and the Loon candle. So the first one is he dropped me off. I went up, and the whole place was lit up. I have never seen so many candles in the cottage in my life. I thought they're going to burn the place down. So I'm looking around, and I focus, and I see my dad. He is lying naked on the couch, fast asleep. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the things that children should not see. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to blow some candles out and just going to avert my eyes and go to bed. Well, I go to my bedroom, and I hear someone vomiting in the bathroom. And I'm like, what in the world? So I go to the bathroom, knock on the door, and crack the door open. And my mother's naked, hunched over the toilet, throwing up. Apparently, they had tried to have a romantic evening with too many gin tonics.
Oh.
She got sick, and he fell asleep, and all the candles were still burning. Of course, the Loon candle there to witness the whole thing in the middle of the room. Oh my gosh. And my mother was just waving me from behind her, like, just get out, get out. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to erase this memory from my brain. Yeah. And the other night, where the Loon candle was a central feature, Richard brought me home too late, and I could see the Loon glowing in the window. There was big glass pane windows and all the way across the front of the cottage. I could see the Loon glowing in the window. I'm like, this is an unusual place for the Loon. So we crept up the steps, hoping nobody would hear. And the whole family was here this weekend. But unusually too, the bamboo curtains were all the way down. Like, all the windows were shut. The doors were locked. I couldn't get in. And my father pops out of the side of the cottage with a chainsaw in his hand, and he yells, "Bah!" Scared the crap out of me. Luckily it wasn't on, but yeah, he got a good one there. And right after that, my then brother-in-law was a professional photographer. You remember those big, huge light bars?
Yeah.
The flash bars. Suddenly the curtain goes up, and this big giant flash comes flying across the porch. Richard goes over the porch 8 feet down into the dirt, and I just slumped to the ground crying after I tried this little silent scream that I couldn't get out. We were terrified. And there's the Loon, just quietly burning the candle in the window, like there's nothing going on, different from any other day. Oh my gosh. So I will say that Loon has been with me through all the years of playing pinochle and backgammon and Monopoly games. And she even served as a little nightlight in my daughter's room when she was little, to have just a little light going for the first couple of hours as she fell asleep. So yeah, this Loon has seen the hail and farewells of dogs, friends, and parties, and now it keeps my soul company in a very Hygge way wherever I live.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Wow. So, yeah, tis the story of
the Loon candle box. That is amazing.
It is. And it's funny how a little piece of wood with a little piece of hand-painted glass that's clearly nothing fancy,
right,
could recall so many stories. I mean, I could go on and on and on about all the times that for some reason it just was this central figure in the cottage. And it just reminds me of all those really magical days growing up on the St. Lawrence River.
And memories that you
Terrifying.
might want to forget,
Yeah,
but you
yes.
haven't.
No. No, clearly I haven't. You take one look at that and you go, oh yeah, there's more stories there. I will save those for around the campfire.
Well, needless to say, I think this is like a couple of things. One is, again, I've known Sam now for 25 years or so, I think, roughly. And there's so much that I learned about you, more about you than I knew before. So and we have so much in common. And I think we did talk about it, but even in your story, telling the story of the Loon candle holder, it made me realize, like, my mother and stepfather had a cottage on the St. Lawrence. Um,
Wow.
I love my mother, who's still with us, love the sounds of loons. Like, it's a very New England, a very Maine, and that part of this country, just really good. But when you showed it to me, I was like, yeah, wrong color.
Yeah, exactly.
I know what
Painted it like a duck, but it's really the shape of a loon.
But I was just like, this was it was, and of course, you know, that I grew up in a military family as well. Not grew up so much, but I was born into one. Born in Okinawa, in an army hospital.
Wow.
And I moved 9 times. My mother forced my father out of the Air Force because even during those days in the 50s, the late 50s, early 60s, jet airplanes were not what they are today. And so even though they didn't see active combat, there were lots of pilots that died in training. And my mother, watching these other women like lose their husbands and all of that, she was just like, young, 2 small kids, no way she was going to be able to handle that. So then he started working for General Electric. So and then got transferred because of that. So we travel a lot, and I love that you also, like me, you don't have very much, but the stuff that you keep has a story. All of it has a story, or it has a purpose, and ideally both. It has,
right, exactly.
It has both. And I love the fact that you shared, because I just spoke with someone about container shipping things in a container from London. It wasn't military, but from London to the US, and how there's like no inventory. There's nobody that's going to sign up and say, I've got all this stuff. I mean, and of course she lost things because stuff happens. And yeah, so it's I love that you're like, nope, I'm going to take those things with me, the things that matter, that create a feeling of home wherever you go, right? That's the thing about, your home. So
yeah, the couches, the table, everything else can be replaced except these few small little items that I just, that haven't been broken through the years, or lost or sold, so that I could, buy yogurt to eat for the next 2 days. There have been those chapters in my life. So
right, you have fascinating chapters of your life, and I am just glad that we know each other, and we've traveled this path. You've met the love of your life and married him, and I married the love of my life and married her at 63.
So worth the wait, isn't it?
It's worth the wait. It's worth the wait. And we're both in the right place now. And it sounds like that as well with you. So, and then of course we have North Carolina and Hendersonville and Asheville in common as well, which is where I got stuck during the beginning of COVID.
Right.
in Brooklyn, my camper van. And it brought a whole new meaning to BYOB. So it was bring your own
Yeah,
bedroom, bring your own bathroom.
that's
Because I
right.
parked in front of my friend's house, and you met my friend Pam,
Yeah.
because you did a couple of show and tells down in Hendersonville area, and
Hmm.
at least one of them she went to. So that was really,
Hmm.
really fun. So thank you for joining me and sharing the story of the thing that matters, and all your fun, like silly, uh like like just major stories that are all attached to that piece of wood and glass. And but it's all weaved together with all kinds of wonderful memories. So thank you for that. And many years ago, because Sam is a memoir writer, a life story coach, she's got some exciting things that she's up to right now. Like she said, we all kind of pivot, trying to figure out where's the right place for us. And I'm still doing it. 64
Yeah.
years old, I'm still doing it. I imagine I'll do it until I die. I imagine that you might evolve too, because that's what's beautiful about you. You just kind of roll with things, and just like, oh, okay, this is the thing. So please, I invite you to share with my listeners how they can find out more about you and what you're up to these days. And I'm going to turn the stage over to you again.
Sure. Well, I am a memoirist, I guess is probably the most fitting title. If I have to carry a title, I guess that's what I'd call myself. And a retreat leader. That's my latest, and it's my latest pivot, but it's also going most closely back to my roots. Because my favorite thing, like yours, is to sit with people and hear their stories, and to see their reactions, and to just have that visceral, sensual moment in the presence of another human being in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
And just sort of eliciting those stories as they unfold, and sort of guiding them. And that's what I love to do. I just become this vessel through which people feel safe and comfortable to tell their stories. And yes, I've done lots of different things, lots of lines of service in my business that over the years, I've said, this works. No, not anymore. It doesn't. Well, this works great. Well, no, that actually doesn't jazz me very much. So I'm going to give that up. People love it and they pay money for it, but I don't like it as much as just listening to stories and helping people tell them.
Yes.
Explore their own life stories. So that's what I've returned to. Is I'm hosting a retreat in Italy this September, and I've got another one going in December in Bavaria, and then next year, who knows, Scotland, Ireland, someplace I haven't been. I figured if when all was said and done, in the middle of COVID, and we were really busy helping people write their stories, I thought, this is too busy. This is not a lot of fun. I'm doing the thing, but it doesn't feel great for me. And if it doesn't feel great for me, it doesn't feel great for my clients.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I would just simplify it again, and having a very small group together at some spa hotel or boutique luxury hotel somewhere, or a bunch of huts in the middle of Ireland. We're in a sacred land where we can walk around, and I can just make the meals or hire a chef or somebody to do it. It doesn't matter. I just want to sit around sort of the proverbial campfire and elicit stories. And as people hear their stories, they just love how, like you and I made that connection, or that reconnection between the military connection, growing up north, and loons. And
yes,
it just happens, you connect those dots, and then it becomes a really special thing to hear your own voice, share your own story that you've just written. So that's the thing that I love to do, is help people explore their stories, whether it's just for themselves, or to publish it, or to share with their family, whatever they want to do, and to just hang out and rest, relax, eat and drink, and be merry, and take the long naps in the afternoon, and have a good time. So that's I want to write and travel, and I want to bring people along to write and travel with me. So that's
Oh,
the bottom line.
oh, I
They can
love it.
find
I
me.
love it.
I guess they can find me at cheerfulword.com, and everything you need to know about me is there. Contact me through that, and
Yeah.
that is me. That is it.
Well, and as I mentioned when we talked last week, I'm hopeful that some things will line up and I'll be able to join you at one of these events in the future.
Oh, that'd be
And
super.
yeah, I think it's just so powerful, like you said, that I was just listening to a podcast that I was the guest on. And one of the things I think that we've talked about before, I don't know if it was last week, was the how powerful telling stories, and I'm talking even the simplest stories about a wooden Loon candle holder, right? These simple stories can, and in your case, I imagine they're much deeper and have many more layers to them. But the reality is that when you get a chance to tell your story, you get you get the ability to get perspective on your story.
Mm-hmm.
You get distance from the story, and then you have the power to change the narrative.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just looking back far enough. It's not to go wading around in all the muck. It's
Right.
to just look at some of those experiences and just sort of glean how they've helped to shape who you are. But memoir to me is really about the future, because you get to rewrite your narrative. You get to write your own future and determine who you want to be, not just from who you thought you were yesterday, but for all your tomorrows.
Right.
So to me, memoir is so much more about tomorrow than it is about yesterday.
I
And
love that. I've never heard of memoir writing being about the future, but it lines up so well with the work that you do, the cheerful word. And but I also have to say, this does not mean that Sam or I never step into the muck with people or never provide the space for that to be a safe place, as Sam spoke of, a
oh
safe
yeah,
and welcoming space for all stories to be told,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
But we hold space for the idea that you can look at it differently. You can have a different perspective. You don't have to, we're not forcing, but we're creating this space for you to
Exactly.
come to that realization. And because I believe me, I know Sam is quite familiar with the muck, but we're looking to
Oh
say,
yeah.
hey, it's fertile ground for what?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, it's not like people say, "Oh, the grass is green around the other side." Well, that's where all the shit is. Of course, it's greener. So we just jump into the shit, run around, laugh and dance, and then we jump back on the other side and start to tell all the stories about as we clean our feet. You know?
Oh, I love that image. I remember you posted something once and you were out in the middle of the field and you're like, I'm out standing in the field.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love a bad pun. I do. I
I
love it.
love you.
They just make me laugh. I can't help it. It's how I'm wired.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I wish you much success. Obviously, anyone
Thank
who's
you.
listening, you can find out more about Sam through thecheerfulword.com and all the information about her upcoming retreats. All of that information will be in the show notes. And please check out the most amazing, important healing work that Sam provides in this world. So
Oh, thank you.
thank you. You've changed lives. You change lives. That's what you
I
do.
just show up. They
Yeah.
do the changing. I just curate the space.
Yeah. But you holding space is the important part as well. So
It
thank
is.
you.
It
Thank
is.
you.
You're
And
welcome.
thank
Well,
you,
thank you for
everyone, for
having
listening.
me.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this edition of Things That Matter with Marty McNabb. And I am presently in Western Mass, getting ready to actually pick up my wife, who's flying in shortly. And I know, yes, we haven't seen each other only about 3 weeks. That's not bad considering a long distance relationship or long distance marriage. But I want to invite people to join me at a virtual show and tales. I post those on my website, showandtales.com. Also, I can be hired by your family, your volunteer appreciation for a volunteer appreciation event, for your corporation, your nonprofit, for a fundraiser, for a family reunion, for a wedding, for something connected to a memorial or retirement. Please consider bringing me in to host a story sharing gathering about the things that matter. And I thank you again, Sam, so much for joining me all the way from the other side of the world. Well, not quite, but for making this time for me and my listeners to learn more about you and your work.
It is my honor. Thank you so much. And thank you for being you. I'm so glad to be connected to you.
Same here. Same here. You have a great day, everyone. And thanks for joining.